You all ready to go?
I actually tried to talk to Dan at the end of the last meeting, but I think he'd already hung up. So go ahead, Carrie, address.
Hey, Dan.
Hi, how are you?
Good, Mr. Mayor, our treasured liaison. I just want you to know that any board member will be happy to sit down with you at your convenience to discuss any subject matter you may have on your mind regarding what we do. All of us work hard. Every board member works hard to exercise our best judgment regarding the zoning laws. And we're happy to educate you on how and why we do what we do. So I hope you'll accept this offering.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Good.
And I do appreciate what you do, and I appreciate that you're in a situation where somebody is requesting something is often going to be told no, and so it's not always going to be a pleasant experience for everyone. I get that. I understand it. I deal with that myself. So yeah, that's all good. If
Thanks,
you're,
Dan.
I'm wondering, I'm not exactly sure why the comment, but I'm guessing it has to do with the fact that I want the council all to understand the processes of our different committees. And as well, I've had people ask me questions like, what is the appeal process? And I didn't know. None of us were brought up knowing this information. And the source that I take for proper guidance for me is our town attorney. And so, and then the entire council needs to know it as well. So I think I could see why you might say, why is he asking that? Well, I'm asking it because I don't know. And that's my policy. If I don't know something, I ask. And I think for every town council member to meet with every BZA member would be extremely inefficient.
Yeah, to me, I would just recommend going to the regs, section 10, 11, and 12, and they can quickly read what our powers are and what we're required to do by state statute.
Exactly.
But anybody else like to talk to Dan before we get started? But yeah, but I think what she was saying is just come to us. We're happy to sit down and talk, even if we can't do it in person. And we'd usually, in the past, we've usually given the new liaison basically some training material, some of the rules we go by and what we're governed by. We'll try to round up some more of those and you can pass them out to your fellow town council members.
Sure, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay.
We had had some
Thank you,
conversation
Dan.
with the previous town attorney also back some years back, and probably good for us to meet with Harry sometime.
Yeah, ongoing training is good for all of us. That's one of the things I've been asking about. Yeah.
All right, I'm good. Thank you.
Along
Thanks,
those
Karen.
lines, Dan, do you intend to address this at the next council meeting? And should we have our chairman show up at your council meeting?
You know, often the way that things go down with those kinds of things is during the agenda setting time for the next meeting. People say, hey, I think we ought to talk about such and such. And then the council talks about it and then decides if it's necessary to ask people to show up and that kind of thing. Sometimes we don't know what questions there are first. So, I mean, you're absolutely welcome. You always are. We're doing that one at the back again. You could be in the audience and be available to speak if you wanted to be, but there hasn't been a formal request because I don't think we're at that stage, or if we may not even get to that stage, who knows?
Okay.
Thanks for asking.
All right. I'll go ahead and call the meeting to order, and I'll go ahead and do a roll call since we're on Zoom. Carrie Lansford.
Present.
Dave Cantrell's here. Doug Houston.
Present.
And Bob Greisinger.
Present.
And we are joined by the town mayor, Dan, and Sam, one of the workers for the town. And is our applicant here also? You're muted right now, Sam.
Our applicant is here, and I believe Ashley is also trying to join the meeting. She
Okay,
should be coming in just a
I'll
second,
hesitate
but I'll go
for
ahead
just-
and bring.
I text her, she
Pedio.
says she's trying to get in.
Okay, I'll hesitate just a second then for her.
I'll go ahead and bring the applicant in as well.
Okay. I can go ahead and do the minutes while we wait on Ashley. The minutes were electronically distributed. Were there any changes or corrections? Bob, you're muted also now, I think. There you go.
No,
If there are no changes, I'll go ahead and approve the minutes. And unfinished business, only if someone wanted to talk about that meeting last month. My only comments on it were the one on Palisades. Because what happens, I've been doing this over 10 years now. When I see a lot, it's rather than people building on the lot they buy, they want to build a certain kind of house regardless of the lot, and then expect us to give them a variance so it fits. So that's sort of how I looked at the meeting last week with the house. He wanted to move it closer to the bluff for a greater view. And I thought he had room to build within the setbacks the way it was. He may have had to alter the house slightly, but anyway, that was my feelings on it. But minutes are approved. Both those cases were denied. And we'll stand by for Ashley.
I'm here. I'm here.
Hello.
My apologies.
That's okay.
I got tied up making a pot of soup. And then I'm glad that you texted me, Chuck.
Priorities, Ashley.
Sorry.
Okay, we did a roll call, and I'll add Ashley Henry to that. Are you here?
I'm here.
All right.
Is anyone not here?
I know we're all here.
Okay, we're all here. Because Carrie, I'll take the minutes. It's my turn.
If you don't mind.
Okay.
Hey, tonight's agenda is cases BZA 2020-6 Bravo, Michael Peavy, 1141 James Boulevard. I want to read a couple of sections from the manual. We brought up whether or not we should hear this within a year. And what Harry was talking about earlier, if you go to section 1201-02, it says, if the decision of the Board of Appeals has not been fully utilized or confirmed by the construction of improvements contemplated within a year, that's if they don't start building within a year, then he'll have to reapply. So let me hesitate 1 second. I lost my place. So basically, I thought I read somewhere that the variance should be effective for 1 year unless the Board of Zoning Appeals comes up with another date. The only reason I thought we could hear this case tonight was he originally asked for a 20-foot variance for his pool, and he's reduced that, I believe, to just 5 feet 6 inches. So since it was a 75% reduction, I thought maybe it was valid to hear it one more time. And you guys can tell me if you think that's wrong or if you agree with that.
Is it legal, Dave?
I don't see why it's not if we decided that it's not exactly the same application, because he has changed the distances by 75%.
Okay.
But maybe we should ask Harry and see what he thinks.
Yeah, let me weigh in on that. Dave, the sections you were talking about initially, 1201.01 and 02, I think that 12.01 ends with the following: unless they're good for a year, unless another time certain is given in such decision.
So that's,
I think that's what you read,
right.
But that provision only deals with if the variance is granted, or if a special permit is granted,
Right.
or something is changed, not a negative, not a denial. I think it can go forward this evening, based on 1201.03, which says the Board of Zoning Appeals shall not rehear any case upon the same grounds within a minimum period of 1 year of its previous hearing date. And I think the fact that the variance request in this case, y'all correct me on my numbers, but I think it was a request for 20-foot variance, and now it's been reduced to 5.6 feet. Is that, or 5 feet 6, 5.5 feet maybe?
That's my
which
understanding.
is a material substantial change to me, and I do think constitutes different grounds.
Does everyone agree with that, or you disagree? Or?
I'm good with it.
I agree.
Same here, same here.
Okay. All right. Can we bring in Michael and see if he wants to tell us what his updates are to his plans?
He's here. Go right ahead.
Hello, everyone.
Hey, Michael.
If I'd like to start off by thanking you guys for considering this. I really appreciate it. So after our meeting last month, I went in and reread some of the Tennessee pool code language in relative to the deck area that's required on which sides of the pool. And that allowed me to basically get the pool closer to my house than I thought I was allowed to. So now it's down to like 4 or 5 feet from the edge of the pool to the structure, which is kind of a minimum. So that took about half of the distance out of what I was requesting. The other half of the distance from the reduction came from, I just reduced the overall size of the pool. The pool was 30 feet in length, and now it is 20 feet in length.
Now it's a hot tub, Michael.
Well, it's as big as the code will allow, and I think that's as small as I can make it, and it still be a pool. This is something we really want for our family, and we feel like it would be a good addition. But I definitely want to make sure that we follow the rules and regulations of what's allowed.
One of my questions is, how far will the pool be from the street? Because I know your front yard's a little larger than average.
Yeah, it's 165 feet from the right of way to the front of the house. So more than it'd be 5'6" into that.
Okay, so about 160 feet.
Yeah.
And I have one more question. I don't know if you guys have this page. But I guess my question is was there a reason you can't build between that outbuilding and the pond?
That's currently, we actually just had that paved as a parking area off of our driveway. And outside of just tearing out what we just constructed, I just didn't want to tear out all the money we had just spent to build all that.
Okay. Does anyone else have questions for Michael?
Yeah, I almost want to discuss this with other board members, or maybe Chuck can enlighten me or educate me. So if you're required to have a fence around your pool, but your fence can't block you from being able to see to pull out into the road, how do you reconcile that?
Well, the ordinances basically are kind of scattered all through the ordinance book on fencing. And so I've kind of gone and tried to pull them all together so I can understand, in general, what the town wants for fences. And basically on the front yard fence, it allows for a 4-foot high fence. And then if it's on a corner, it's only 3 foot. Well, the point of lower fencing, as far as not letting a 6-foot fence that's, a solid fence or something like that, is like if somebody's builds a fence on their property line and they take it all the way out to the street or to the end of their property, basically, then their neighbor next door may be where when they try to back out of their driveway, they can't see traffic because the fence blocks it.
Right.
So I figured that's the whole general purpose of what they're trying to do with the 4-foot fence and being able to see with the visibility triangle. And usually your visibility triangle is interpreted somewhat of your driveway and the street is somewhat of an intersection. So in that respect, if you do a visibility triangle out at the street, then you're looking at whether it's a visibility issue or anything like that. Where with this, I still need to follow the 4-foot rule and the height of the fence for the pool also into play there. So we can match those two and make that work. But he's also not having to deal with the visibility issue. So as far as whether it's a solid fence or not a solid fence, I don't know that that's an issue because we're not having to deal with traffic visibility.
Well, and that's because it's,
And the ordinance doesn't specifically say anything as far as that goes, except it's talking about when it makes the reference to the 3 foot, it says between 3 feet and 10 feet. So in other words, if you've got a tree that's got limbs that come down, they want you to try to bring your limbs up so you can see underneath the limbs. And then they don't want anything taller than 3 feet to come up. So you got that visibility between the 3 feet and the 10 feet for anything. And that's where it's talking about being able to see. So in this case, I don't see that there's an issue with, with visibility.
Okay. Any other questions? Mr. Peavy?
David, I do have a statement about this. I don't know, like Chuck does, what the committee that designed these rules to be was thinking. I have no idea what they were thinking, but they did write that there will be no fence over 4 feet in our front yard. Another thing is, I don't know what they were thinking when they said that it had to be 4 feet because a fence around a pool has to be 5 feet. So that's according to our regs on what the fence is around the pool.
So in a normal yard with a pool, how high can the fence be? Or
It's
how
gotta
high?
be 5.
It has to be 5 feet. Okay.
Well, in our ordinances, there's actually 2 places that says, one says 5 feet and one says 4 feet.
And there was just a revision to a rule having to do with pools that was from the state, but it doesn't have anything to do with our ordinances. Our ordinance say 5 feet.
Okay.
Well, like I say, it's in there both, it's in there twice. And one says 4, one says 5.
Okay. Any other questions? Doug, do you have anything?
No question.
Let's see.
I have
Ashley,
a question.
Okay.
Is there a definition in the definition section concerning what a front yard is considered? Is that from the front of the house or the setback?
I'll let Chuck handle that one. I think it's front corner of the house, side yard, and the backyard, but Chuck can give us the exact answer.
I go back, I was actually in these definitions earlier today. Let me see if I can spot it real quick. Here we go. Okay, the ordinance definition, it gives for yard, front yard, rear yard, side yard. On front yard, it says a yard across the full width of the lot, extending from the front of the house or other principal structures, including porches, to the front line of the lot.
Okay.
Okay,
So
so
basically, in his,
So if we go
where his
back-
pool is going, he can actually, he's somewhat in the backyard and transitions into the front yard. So he could go like from 6 feet and slope his fence down to 4 feet and, have a transition there when he's coming to the front of the house.
So Chuck, if we go out, if we factor in the front porch, there's a kind of an awning coming out. If we go out to the end of that, how far would this pool come out and forward of that?
If you're looking at that,
Because if that's the case, my next question is, just put a wall, he could put a longer awning and he wouldn't even have to have a variance.
well, we discussed that, but
We can revisit that. We can certainly revisit that, guys, because the little stoop over the front of our house is about 3.5 feet. If you're telling me that I need to build a 5'6" stoop on the front of my house, and then I don't need you guys to approve any of this, I mean, I would certainly like your blessing tonight for this so that we can have it as a backup, but I will tear that thing off in a heartbeat.
That's interesting.
Well, that is
Yeah.
my question, because the house is not on the front setback. So he could build a porch and then the pool would all be in the side yard and not even be in the front yard, correct?
technically, yes.
I have a partner wife, and I pitched that to her, and it did not go so well. So I have a client in this particular case, and my client told me no.
It's not something you can talk her into, it sounds like.
She's a pretty strong lady, so no, not really.
Like I say, we had discussed this.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, Chuck asked me this about 3 weeks ago, and I made my pitch and was denied.
Well,
Poor man.
it's hard to base BZA off this sort of thing.
I agree.
Oh, let me ask the members this, since this is 160 feet from the road, normally this front, no pools in the front yard is with a 40-foot setback. I think that's how they base this rule. I'm just guessing, but one of the sentences from section 1104 says relief can be granted if it can be done without substantial detriment to the public good and without substantial impairment of the intent and purpose of the zoning plan. So I guess that's my question for you guys. You think this would be a detriment to the public good and our zoning rules since he's so far from the street?
I do not.
I do not either. It's just the hardship is just not there. If he had that porch built out there, then he would be home free.
Well,
But I can argue, I'm not going to make somebody put a porch on the front of their house when I think the intent of our code is still met by allowing him to do this pool. I mean,
yeah, and the only hardship I saw, he didn't actually include this, but beyond the septic field, he said the elevation changes 35%, 35 feet. And he's promised his neighbor to keep that erosion buffer there so soil doesn't erode down onto his neighbor's property. So, you know, if he could try to place the pool back there, except for that fact. That's not, go ahead, Bob.
I think we're out of our realm. I think we ought to send this back to the zoning board and let them look at it. There's a lot of people in this town that this would affect their ability to do a front yard pool. And I think rather than give us the opportunity to do one at a time, I think we ought to send it to them and say, look at it, come up with a reasonable answer. Like we said earlier, the one right across the street has a pool in it that was done years ago. And I don't think the BZA is here to make new rules for the zoning. I think we're here to make slight variances, and changing the whole definition of where this pool can be, I think is more than a slight variance.
well, I think we're also here though to provide some definition to the guidelines. And in our rulings, we do that. And so
I don't think that the planning commission is so busy that they can't hear this.
The
well,
thing
I don't
is,
know about that.
the thing is, we can make one exception and it's not precedent or doesn't apply to the whole town. Whatever they do will have to apply to the whole town. But if we see circumstances we think we can make an exception for, then we could do a one time.
I like that, Dave. So we can make a ruling that's an exception and doesn't set a precedent. Is that what you just said?
Well, that's what the rules say. It says like 1104, 01, 01, 01 says circumstances exist which are peculiar to the land, structure, building involved and are not applicable to other land, structures and buildings in the same district. So like the neighbor can't say, well, he got one, so I want one. Because they only apply to one property. let's see. Yeah, and further down, it says granting the variance will not confer any special privileges. And if it's non-conforming, the neighbors don't automatically get the same right. That's the one I should have read in the first place. 1104, 0102.
Yeah, that's important to me.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions? Let's see. Does anyone have a motion?
I'll make a motion to grant the variance of, tell me the amount of feet it was.
5
5,
feet 6 inches, I believe.
5, 6, okay. So I make a motion to grant the variance of 5 feet 6 inches.
And do we have a second? I'll second the motion. For discussion, you want to tell us why, Ashley?
Well, I believe that this should be granted for just the reasoning we just said. I think it's one exception, and I think that that's actually smarter than having it allowed for the entire town. I think that when I looked at these sections, I feel that they probably were put in place because most homes today are built on the front property line, and this home is 165 feet back. And I do think that therefore, some of the reasoning doesn't really hold in this case for why not to grant it. He can put a porch on it and put 2 sticks out there holding up an awning and then put this pool in, and it's not considered the front yard. And I don't feel that if I'm reasonable in my views that I should deny this.
Okay.
But
Won't have an opposite point of view.
I have a question though.
Okay.
My biggest concern is about the adjacent property owners. Neither of these owners have probably ever been through this, likely never been through this process. And they're looking right at this area. They have a clear view right out their windows. And
Is the elevation of the property higher also?
So at the house that's next door that this directly looks into the back of it, that's the highest part of the property. So their front setback is about, I don't know, 40 feet. So at the elevation their house is across where my property is, it's the same elevation, and then it all kind of evenly falls back toward our house. I have had lengthy discussions with all of the surrounding neighbors that touch the property, and they are all in favor of this.
Of course, they won't all live there forever, but with a 5-foot fence, will privacy be an issue?
They've actually planted leaping cypresses for this full length, and so in a couple of years, I'm not going to be able to see their house anyway.
Okay. Bob, did you have anything?
No, I don't guess I do. I just, the percentage of this variation is infinite, David. You always sit there and say, well, we can give a 10% variance or 20. This is an infinite variance.
Okay. Carrie, anything else?
well, I first want to congratulate Michael on being less non-compliant. And, I think he's got with the erosion thing and the septic tanks in the back and just going from 20 feet to 5 feet, that's a major compromise. I'm in favor of granting the variance.
Any other comments before we vote? Okay, question is, there is a motion on the floor to approve a 5-foot 6-inch variance on the side of the house that protrudes into the front yard. So a variance for a pool, I guess intruding onto the front yard. I'm not sure the proper way to say that. So all those for approval of the 5-foot 6-inch variance, state your name and your vote.
I think we need to do a roll call.
Oh, I was just going to let each person say their name and how they voted.
That is a roll call, yeah.
Oh, yeah, because usually we don't.
Sam would we had discussed this in the office. Sam's kind of the authority on this, so how do you want to do this, Sam?
Well, usually we all have the pros and the cons go at different times, but go ahead, Sam, what do you
I
say?
think if as long as y'all are saying your names and your vote, I think that's sufficient.
Right, like
Okay.
our chair suggested.
Okay,
Okay, all those in favor of approving the variance?
Carrie Lansford, I'm in favor.
Ashley Henry, I'm in favor.
Okay,
Bob Reisinger, I said vote no.
okay. Doug?
Go ahead, Dave.
David Cantrell, I vote for approval of the variance. And like I said, my main reason is 160 feet from the street.
Yeah,
So,
It's an exception, not a precedent.
yeah. Okay, I approve. Doug Houston.
okay, that's 4 for approval, 1 for non-approval. The ayes have it, and the variance is approved, 5 feet, 6 inches.
Thank you, guys.
You're
Okay,
welcome, Michael.
Very appreciated.
all right, have fun. Do we have any other business tonight, guys?
not that I'm aware of.
Any of the members have anything? Oh, I did have something. Has everybody gotten by to sign the forms from the previous meetings?
Oh, I've not.
Neither
Don't
have I.
Well,
What,
will you have,
if you wait, I'm gonna be out of town tomorrow, and if we wait till next week, I'll go ahead and have the form for this meeting out there too, and then we can have all 3 signed.
okay. Yeah, just call Chuck or call Town Hall and share it. Someone will let you in the front door.
You know,
Or
we've
in the
got it out
parking
there.
lot? How about the parking lot?
Well, you just step in the lobby and sign it on the table there.
Okay,
Yeah, Chuck was the only other person in there when I
Okay.
did it.
thank you,
Uh,
fellow board members.
Okay, thanks, guys. If that's it, the
Thank
meeting
you.
is adjourned.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Appreciate you, Dave.